Good evening. My name is Kolo Wamba and I teach physics part-time at Skyline. I came to the community college system having spent a little over a decade as a California tech worker, using my knowledge of physics to help millionaires become billionaires. I was an unwitting cog in what I now call the carbon industrial complex. I'd been doing this for about 4 years when the Deep Horizon disaster happened. And this made me intensely aware of the dangers of fossil fuels, which made me learn more about climate change, which eventually turned into an obsession. Like most technologists, I'd initially assumed that climate change was merely an engineering problem. If only the right group of the right technologists could invent and deploy the right carbon capture systems and green up our infrastructure, everything would turn out fine, right? Plus, it would mean that people like me, who are technologically inclined but not environmental engineering experts, could make a real contribution by helping to provide a solid STEM education to the generation of tech folks who would actually become those experts and get the job done. At least that's where my head was at back in 2012. So I took a part-time job teaching math at DeVry University, which at the time was the only place that would take me without any prior teaching experience. I taught at DeVry off and on for the next 4 years while continuing to work in industry. Finally, in 2016, I followed my spouse, who was relocating for a job back to the Bay Area, and found a part-time physics teaching gig for myself at Skyline College. Trying to make it in the Bay Area after having been gone for almost a decade was a rude reminder that when you find yourself spending all your free time sitting in traffic and most of your money on housing and gas, something is seriously off. I started to notice a strong correlation between how much the Bay Area economy grew and the number of tents I would see pitched under overpasses around where I live. And it became clear to me that this was all deeply connected to the rate at which carbon is being added to the atmosphere. You see, about half of carbon emissions by individuals come from the top 10% of income earners. These are the folks who zip about in carbon-vomiting jets and have multiple homes and cars, and many of these people are our very own Silicon Valley tech folks. That's when it hit home. The carbon industrial complex is the inequality industrial complex, and the fight to stop and reverse climate change is really the fight to stop inequality in all its forms. It is the fight for gender justice and racial justice and disabled rights and LGBTQ rights and indigenous rights and, yes, labor rights. Last year this came to a head and I resolved to actually do something about it. You could say that this was when I became radicalized, although I hate that word. To me, the radical idea is that it's normal and acceptable for homelessness to skyrocket whenever the local economy heats up. But I also realized that I could fight back. I could withhold my labor from the inequality industrial complex and instead apply it to a fully unionized, low-carbon industry, which is what community college teaching is. And so last fall I became a full-time adjunct and took on a full teaching load shared between Skyline College and Skyline College, and I changed my industry job from full-time to part-time. I still have to pay bills. I am so glad I made this decision. Next to marrying my wife, it ranks as one of the best I ever made. I love teaching, and I'm almost good at it. Physics is a fun subject, and I have great colleagues, but above all, it's really about the students. I love working with them, and after all, they're ultimately why we are all here. Still, as I've said, the fight to stop climate change is a fight against inequality, and we can start by fighting right here in our own district. Part-time faculty still, at best, earn only about 70% of what full-timers get on an hourly basis, and we don't get the same health plan. Ours isn't even really a plan. It's partial insurance reimbursement, and many of us don't even qualify because we teach too few units. This is not acceptable. This is about equal pay for equal work, and there's absolutely no doubt that we do equal work. We teach the same classes and labs, we hold the same office hours, some of us even do the same committee work. What's more, we are routinely called upon to cover classes and labs for full-timers when they're away. We're of course more than happy to do it. It's more of a chance to work with students that we love so much, and the full-timers, of course, are always more than willing to do the same for us. Fortunately, AFT has a proposal for pay equity and workload compensation that addresses these issues, and I fully support it. Not only would it provide parity, it would ensure that full-timers do not get overworked and that part-timers do not end up performing uncompensated tasks. But ultimately, this is about more than compensation. It really is about social justice. If you haven't noticed, my cohort of part-time faculty are more ethnically diverse, at least in my program, and at least in my program are overwhelmingly female. And I suspect it's the same campus-wide, perhaps even district-wide. It is clear, therefore, that the lack of pay parity is an obvious contributor to the gender pay gap. Whether this is intentional or not is immaterial. Does the district really want to be seen as a place where gender discrimination is just part of the scenery? Potentially even worse, does the district want to be on the side of history that stood in the way of progress against inequality, against climate change? This type of thing is exactly what I came here to get away from when I drastically reduced my involvement in Silicon Valley Tech. To those folks, inequality is fine because they continue to harbor the delusion that we live in a meritocracy. Don't be like them. They're the ones who are making things worse for everyone. You have the means, the motive, and the opportunity to at least take a baby step toward the right side of history. And I urge the board to take this matter very seriously. I haven't been in the district very long, and even I can see that this is long overdue. Thank you.